You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the March 12th, 2024 meeting of the Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Hello, I am Sylvia Martin, and welcome to the Michigan City Board of Zoning and Appeals regular meeting, Tuesday, March 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We will start off with roll call of officers. Mr. Jackson,
Here.
Mr. Klinder,
Here.
Ms. Stransky,
Here.
Ms. Vance,
Here.
and Mr. Gross.
Here.
Attorney Steve Hill.
Here.
So in your roll call, I would like to start off this meeting by going through and introducing ourselves as we have a new member, and also just to introduce ourselves to the community. We'll start with Mr. Gross.
What all do you want to know?
Just a little general, a little snippet.
I'm actually a certified electronic technician. Been doing that for probably about 50 years. I'm retired now from a major Japanese corporation. Although in the past I've worked for, done a lot. I'm a jack of all trades and master of only a couple. I have dabbled in real estate. I was a licensed real estate agent in the state of Indiana. So I'm familiar with a lot of what a real estate agent would be as far as surveys and things like that.
What's your first name?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Gross, what is your first name?
Brian, I'm sorry, my first name is Brian. Although my daughter calls me old man, so.
Nice to meet you.
Okay.
So I'm Ricky Jackson. This is my second go around for the BZA. I work a full-time job for the city's park department and have lived in Michigan City my whole life. So this is something to kind of give back and make sure things go right.
We started this together.
Yes, we did.
Kathy Stransky, and I am a lifelong resident of Michigan City with 64 years on the 200 block of East Parker Ave, and I was a letter carrier in my career.
I'm Deborah Vance. This is my second appointment with the Board of Zoning Appeals. And in my full-time career, I'm a real estate agent. And in my private life, I'm a grandma of 7.
We started together as well.
Yes.
My name is Fred Klinder. I've been with the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'm the representative from the Planning Commission. This is my 4th term of administrative term, dating back to Oberly. So it's been a while and enjoy it very much. My whole life, all 50 years in Michigan City.
I got
My name is Stephen Hale, and I'm the attorney for the Planning Department, which includes this Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission.
And again, I am Dr. Sylvia Martin. I am the Assistant Director for the Planning and Inspection Department. The first order of business is approval of December 12th, 2023 minutes and February. Well, do we have to do them one at a time, or can I do both at the same time?
Absolutely, I would recommend that we do them separately.
Okay, so first I would like to do approval for the December 12th, 2023 minutes.
Mrs. Martin,
Yes, sir.
may I address the question of the minutes?
Of course.
I'm taking a look at these minutes And you will recall our December 12th meeting, it was a rather lengthy one. And we approved 4 different projects. In going over these minutes then relating to those projects, I found several errors, typographical or otherwise, that need to be addressed and changed, in my opinion. And so I'll take you through those if I may. And then you may do one of 2 things, in my opinion. You may defer these approvals until our next meeting so that staff could make the changes directly, or you could just approve them as submitted to you, but as corrected by me and anyone else that has a correction. I'll leave that to the board's discretion. So on page 4 of 10, there is a motion by member Jackson at the bottom of that page. And the motion included some conditions. And so in the middle of that paragraph of the motion says, along with the conditions, 1, maximum signage on west facade, Franklin Street, should be no greater than 17.25 square feet. 17.25 square feet is an error. It should be, there's a typographical, I'm sure it should be 170.25. So 170.25 feet. On the next page, page 5, there's another motion regarding our second petition that day, petition B106-23 for Raising Cane's Restaurants. And the conditions are set forth beginning in the 5th line down, and it reads, along with the following conditions. 1, the height of the new pole to be installed be no greater than 20 feet, and the total area size of the fixed sign and EMC should be no greater than 116 feet. That is also an error. It is not 116. It should be 98 square feet. So it should read no greater than 98 square feet. On page 6 of 10, at the bottom of the page, there's another motion regarding petition B-107-23. You, I hope, will recall that one of the there was a condition added to this approval. This was the approval that regarded a side yard adjacent to a street setback. And the setback was approved to 5 feet, but the second sentence, which begins on the 4th line down, reads, upon roll call vote was as follows, and then it lists the roll call. Before that, so when it talks about on the 4th line down, the rear of the property at 515 Gardena Street, we should add, subject to the condition that the existing garage be attached to the new garage by a breezeway. And there, you'll recall we had a discussion about that, and Ms. Martin explained why we have to have that. And so it's my strong recommendation that that was part of the approval, and that we should add those words. That is, after 515 Gardena Street on the 4th line down, it reads, subject to the condition that the existing garage be attached to the new garage by a breezeway.
They did, I checked.
They did.
On page 9 of 10, at the very top of the page, I think this is important, and this is approval for petition B-108-23. That was one that had for Drive and Shine Inc., and it had many different requests. And we spent a great deal of time on it. And I just think it's important that on page 9 of 10, at the top, second line down, it reads, the property pursuant to approval from the planning department. Now, this is talking about moving the flagpole. To remind you, the flagpole was in the northwest corner, and it was immediately next to an existing electronic message sign of a neighboring property. And it was felt by this board that if the flagpole, which is a rather large one, was moved to the center of a rather lengthy frontage property, that it wouldn't interfere with that sign. And so it was important that the planning department approve the location of the sign. And I believe those were the exact words that were used. In fact, I know they were because I went back and looked at the tape. So second line down from the top on page 9 of 10, the word agreement should be stricken and substituted with the word approval. And I believe the last one is the next motion. It was for also petition B-108-23, Drive and Shine. The fifth line down reads, allowing increase in wall signage on west and north elevations. Those are accurate. My suggestion is that we add after west to 177.4 feet, and after north elevations, we add to 120.8 feet. If you recall, we had a great deal of discussion about how large those signs were. This was what was requested by the petitioner, very specifically as to those numbers, and that was very specific to, I believe, Ms. Stransky's motion. And so I would suggest that we add those two numbers, that is to 177.4 following west and to 120.8 following north elevations. And finally, at the bottom of the page, there's a motion, again on petition B-108-23. The sixth line down reads 212 square feet and approval of total signage, including the EMC signage of 152 square feet. If you remember, there was a great deal of discussion about this issue as well. And the discussion was what would be the size of the EMC? And the petitioner was requesting an EMC of 40 square feet, and we added 40 square feet to what he wanted for the fixed portion of that sign. And we came up with 152 square feet, but it isn't approval of an EMC sign up to 112 square feet. It was up to 40 square feet. And the overall signage, as it continues to say, was approved at 152. That includes the 40, leaving 112, and that was the number that was discussed for the fixed portion of the sign. So it's my recommendation that we change the sixth line down from to 112 square feet to read 240 square feet. And I believe those are all of my recommended changes.
Looking through here, I see in several spots, not all of them, but if you look at several of the motions, Klinder is mentioned twice as a member and my name is not there.
Okay.
So we wanna,
Actually,
I know the first one I'm on, and then if you look at the next one, we got Klinder here, I'm here, but then you look here. Where it's on this page, you start seeing Klinder.
Okay.
Yeah, so we just gotta make sure that they,
Say it in there. Her name is Michelin off of the roll call.
you talking about in the roll call?
no, on the motions, when they did the call.
In the roll call on emotions.
So we have-
I'm looking at the latest version of these minutes because I saw that and asked her to correct.
So did she correct it? I only
What
have.
I'm looking at is the first motion for 105-23. The vote was as follows: Zimmer, Klinder, Jackson, Stransky, Vance. the second one, Zimmer, Klinder, Jackson, Stransky, Vance.
Because when I got the
Third
email
one,
from them,
Jackson,
Okay, I'll make sure.
Stransky, Vance.
I only got one page.
The next one, this is now
You
one.
may have not gotten an update.
I didn't get an updated one. This is from,
I left it at your place, I think. That you should have a copy of all of these at your place. I tried to leave one just now before the meeting.
oh, she's sitting right here.
Yeah,
Oh, well, I didn't see them there. Let me see.
connected by paperclip. 105, 106, 107.
Your reports or the minutes?
I have a report,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
I have those.
Yeah.
I just don't have it updated.
Yeah.
She corrected it. I just don't.
Well, she can't correct it until you guys motion for her to make
Right.
corrections. So that's why I say you just state it once he's finished as far as corrections.
I apologize because it was corrected in the minutes that were given to me. After we pointed out that your name was on some occasions,
Not all, yeah,
Mr. Klinder's name was included twice.
right.
So I would say to you that, to be clear, I believe that those are all made in the minutes that are being submitted and that will be approved today, and we'll make sure that we don't use an earlier copy.
Okay.
I have a question on that too, if I may. Okay, on petition B-105-23, which is page 3. In mine, I think some of the pages only go to 9, some go to 10. But the second motion by member Klinder, seconded by member Stransky, the motion only says assigned area of not more than 174 square feet. Should it be 174? I'm sorry, it says 174 feet. Should it be 174 square feet? Does that matter?
I think that's a very good catch. And so I would suggest, and he's talking about page 3 of 10 on the most recent, we're going to call it the submitted copy of minutes. It's the motion, the second motion on that page. It begins motion by board member Klinder, seconded by board member Stransky. And on the fourth line down, it says the overall sign area of not more than 174 feet. And I think he's right. We should call it 174 square feet because we're talking about area. And that would be square feet. So that would be another recommendation I make for change of it.
Do I have a motion for the minutes?
In general comment, all of the suggested changes that Mr. Hale has brought forward all strike a nerve with me, if you will. And I do recollect those conversations being pretty adamant, and thank you for catching them, and I agree with them.
As I indicated, you may have a motion or you may defer and ask that they be corrected and you be given a corrected copy at next meeting. It doesn't matter. We've, I think, properly outlined all the changes. So the motion, if you want to approve them tonight, would be as submitted and corrected during the meeting.
Just for verification, remember, we had a meeting, which we would have gone through this. We made some of the corrections and then Mr. Hale and I found others. So
A motion to accept the minutes as they were corrected in our meeting tonight by Mr. Hale, Mr. Gross, and things that Ms. Martin has brought. Is that acceptable?
As submitted and as corrected.
Submitted and corrected.
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross. Well, Mr. Gross, I'm sorry.
I
You
will
would-
abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Thank you. Now we have approval of Minutes from February 13th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of February 13th, 24 as submitted.
I second it.
I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Abstain, I was not here.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Minutes approved. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Vance.
Yes.
I just minutes approved. Like, thank you. Next order of business is election of chairman, vice chairman, and secretary. I will entertain a motion, nomination for chairman.
I nominate Ricky Jackson.
Mr. Jackson, are you down here? Do you accept nomination?
Yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh,
Whoa.
I got 2 seconds. Do I have any other nominations? No nominations? I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Jackson. You are the chairman. Excuse me. Take over.
He does.
Oh, goodbye, neighbor.
It's all yours.
Goodbye, neighbor. Now I have to write.
No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Is this where I'm supposed to go?
Yes.
Oh, it's so good to be back. So before we move on, one thing right quick, please. I just want to bring up the fact that Lawrence Zimmer did this job very, very well. He has moved on to bigger and better things, I hope,
Mhm.
and he will be missed.
Be well.
Okay. Miss Martin, do you want to continue on with calling the,
Well, that's you.
that's me? Oh, wow.
That's for nominations.
Okay, so we're up to nominations for the vice chairman. Is there any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Kathy Stransky.
So I have a nomination for Kathy Stransky. Ms. Stransky, do you accept?
Yes.
Okay. So with that, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gross. And roll call, please.
I will.
Oh, yes. So is there anybody else that would like to be nominated for the vice chairman spot? Well, it gets awfully quiet when they ask that, isn't it? Okay, Miss Martin?
I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next on our list is the office of secretary. Is there any motions or nominations for secretary?
I nominate Debbie for our secretary.
So I have a nomination for Mrs. Vance for secretary. Do you accept?
Yes.
She does accept. Is there a second?
Yes, there is. Second.
So I have a second by Mr. Klinder. And before we go any further, is there anyone else that would like to step forward for a nomination for secretary? Okay,
All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Van,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Congratulations
Thank you.
again.
Thank you.
Moving next on the agenda is petitions. Ms. Martin, do we have any petitions tonight?
We do. We are here for finding of facts we'll start with B-105-23. Attorney Steve Hale will take over.
We always make findings. In fact, we're required by statute to make written findings. So after a meeting that actually approves a petition or subject to conditions or changes, a formal decision and findings of fact in written form is submitted to this body to adopt. And so my first decision and findings of fact is for petition number B-105-23. The petitioner was Stindler Signs. The property owner was First Trust Credit Union, formerly known as the Porter Federal Credit Union. The request was for development standards variances, plural, and the property is located at 950 East Highway 20, Michigan City, Indiana. You recall that this involved a pole sign, an existing pole sign at 21.25 feet, and the petitioner was requesting that that pole sign be approved as what would really be a monument sign. Monument sign would not be allowed at over 21.25 feet. So the request was to have an existing pole sign at 21.25 feet in height and the signage area to exceed our standards and be at least 120 or no more than 127 square feet per side. So the board approved the requested development standards variance as to height of the sign, but made it subject to the following conditions. A, the height of the sign shall not be greater than 21.25 feet. B, the petitioner shall locate the monument sign as determined by the water department. You recall that the water department had a main in the area and wanted this located so it would not interfere. And finally, the petitioner needs to apply for a separate variance for the EMC, Electronic Message Center portion of the sign, because that was not part of the original request. It was discussed, but the petitioner was requested to come back with a separate petition later. Subject to those conditions, the board approved the height of the sign and the general size of the sign at 174 square feet per side. An additional condition was added to that approval that the overall message area shall not exceed 174 square feet. That was shown in them. So, as always, I've summarized what you have, but you have written form. I think an appropriate message, an important motion would be to approve the decision and findings of fact for petition B-105-23 as submitted in written form to you.
Board members, is there a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the decision and findings of fact of petition B-103.25 as presented to us this evening.
105, B-105-23, you mean?
Yeah, isn't that what I said?
You said something like.
I may not have. There's a dyslexia problem here sometimes. It's B-105-23.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I'll call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Van,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
All right, next we have findings of facts for B-106-23.
I'll now prepare and submit it to you for your consideration, decision, and findings of fact for petition number B-106-23. The petitioner and applicant was Raising Cane's Restaurants LLC. The property owner was NNN REIT, Inc. Excuse me. Formerly Captech Net Lease Realty, Inc. The request was for development standards variances, plural, and the property is located at 5,000 Franklin Street, Michigan City, Indiana. Like the last one, we had our public hearing on December 12th, 2023. And you'll recall that the request for a development standard variance was first to allow the message size on the west facade. Now, this is a wall sign. The request was for the message sign on the west facade, which is Franklin Street, to be 170.25 square feet. And that was approved. Then the board was asked as to the pole sign. The pole sign was to be a new pole, and the request was to have a height of 20 feet. The total area size of the fixed sign and the EMC, electronic message, shall not exceed 98 square feet. There was approval given that the EMC sign may be located within 600 feet of other EMC signs. There are signs within that 600 feet. There's a lot of those EMC signs in the area. And this approves it as a variance because our zoning code prohibits it otherwise. And finally, placement of the sign shall not be within 10 feet of the water main on Franklin Street and shall not be placed over the private fire service. And based upon those conditions, this second development standards variance was approved. Again, I think an appropriate motion would be to adopt the decision and findings of fact for petition B-106-23 as submitted in written form to you and summarized by me this evening.
Board members, is there a motion for B-106-23?
I make a motion to adopt the decisions and findings of facts for petition number B-106-23.
I have a motion by Mr. Gross,
I second.
second by Ms. Vance.
I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
All right, so next we have B-107-23, findings of fact, Eric and Kimberly and Tisdale, 515 Gardenia Street. Probably should have did that for the other ones.
I prepared and submitted to you in written form, and you have it in front of you. A decision and findings of fact for petition number B-107-23. The petitioners and the owners are Eric S. and Kimberly A. and Tisdale. Their request is for development standards variance, singular, for property at 515 Gardena Street, Michigan City. We had a public hearing on December 12th, 2023. You will recall that the Tisdales constructed or began construction of a garage that was separate or detached. Wasn't totally finished, but it was almost finished. It was red tagged because it was a second garage, which isn't permitted. Therefore, they came before this body with the request, the development standards variance request, that they be permitted to have a side yard setback of 5 feet. The reason that it would be needed, because normally it's 20 feet, is because it's a side yard next to a street. And our zoning ordinance provides that for yards that are next to a street, there's 20 feet. And so the Tisdales were requesting that you allow them to have that 5 feet because that's where the existing almost completed new garage was. And so this body approved that request for a development standards variance allowing a reduction in the side yard setback to 5 feet, but subject to a condition. And I believe that Mrs. Martin discussed the rationale for that, because you are only allowed so many detached structures, and so this had to be attached to the existing garage. And so the condition is the petitioners must attach the existing garage attached to the house already to the newly installed garage with a breezeway. Again, as stated earlier, an appropriate motion would be to approve the decision and findings of fact for petition B-107-23 as presented to you in written form and summarized by me this evening.
Board members, is there a motion for this petition?
I motion that we accept the decision and findings of fact for petition number B-107-23 as written and presented by Attorney Hale.
So I have a motion by Ms. Vance. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Gross.
I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klender,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes.
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
and Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Finding of facts approved. Next, we have finding of facts for B-108-23 Drive and Shine.
I prepared in written form a decision and findings of fact for your consideration. You have it in front of you. It is for petition B-108-23. The petitioner was Drive and Shine, Inc. The property owners are Pranam LLC, Gayatri Corporation, Tamiya and Shital Patel. They were requesting special exception use and several development standards variances for property composed of 3 parcels, 3944 South Franklin Street, adjacent parcel 3948 South Franklin Street, and a adjacent vacant parcel on Alderson Court. We held a public hearing on December 12, 2023, and initially the request was that the petitioner wanted a special exception use to allow the operation of a car wash, and a second special exception use to allow the operation of a minor automobile service and repair business. And what is a single business, indoor car wash and indoor lube center. You recall, I think I discussed the notion that our zoning ordinance deals with each of these separately, a car wash and minor automobile service. And therefore, they are both not permitted. They are allowed as a special exception use, and they're listed in our zoning ordinance as such. So if they meet all the requirements, they should be granted a special exception use for each one. And that's what this body did. They granted a special exception use for both the car wash and the minor automobile repair. A second reason why it required approval of both special exception uses is that our zoning ordinance requires special exception uses in some circumstances to meet certain enumerated requirements that are part of the zoning ordinance. And in this case, they were section 14.05B, as to the automobile car wash, and section 14.05A as to the small automobile service and repair business. So they have to meet those requirements. So you discussed that, and you, in approving the 2 special exception uses, added the following condition. The requirements of section 14.05A and B shall be met. Now, next, the petitioner requested several development standard variances. A, the requirements of flagpole height and flag size. B, the requirements regarding wall signage and total signage area. And C, the requirements regarding a monument sign height, monument sign signage area, and the addition of an EMC sign to the monument sign. This body approved those requests as follows. The Board of Zoning Appeals approves the development standards variances concerning 1, the height and size of the flagpole of 60 feet in height and 375 square feet in size. 2, an increase in wall signage square footage on the north up to 120.8 square feet and west elevations up to the west up to 177.4 square feet. 3, a monument sign to be 20 feet in height with an EMC sign of 40 square feet and a total size, including the EMC signage, of no more than 152 square feet. That's what was approved. It was, however, subject to several conditions. Those include A, the flagpole should be no more than 60 feet in height and the flag no more than 375 square feet in size. B, the flagpole shall be located in the center of the property and set back from the front property line as approved by the planning department. And you will recall there was some discussion about that because the flagpole would potentially interfere with other signage of adjoining businesses. C, the petitioner shall at its cost erect a sidewalk along Franklin Street connected to adjacent sidewalks where available and similar in size and appearance to adjacent sidewalks. D, the monument sign shall not exceed 20 feet in height or 152 square feet in signage. And E, an EMC sign as part of the monument sign shall not exceed 40 square feet and shall be permitted even though a current EMC sign in excess of 12 square feet is located within 600 feet of the monument sign. And you recall, in fact, it's right next door. So those are the conditions, and subject to those conditions, this body approved those requests as I read to you. Again, an appropriate motion would be to adopt the decision and findings of fact for petition B-108-23 as submitted to you in written form and as summarized by me at this meeting.
Board members, is there a motion for petition B-108-23?
Yes, there is. I make a motion that we approve the decisions and findings of facts on petition B-108-23 as presented this evening in written form and summarized now by Attorney Hale.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Klinder. Is there a second?
I second it.
Second by Mrs. Voss.
I will
Vance, sorry.
did it again. I will call for the vote. Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mr. Klinder,
Yes.
Ms. Stransky,
Yes,
Ms. Vance,
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Find the facts approved.
Ms. Martin, do we have any new business?
We do not have any new business, but I do have a update about petition B-105-23, First Trust Credit Union, 950 East US Highway. We, as you heard Mr. Hale state, we requested him to come back for an EMC sign. He did not need to come back for an EMC sign because he's nowhere near another EMC sign, which means he can have his 40 square feet as long as it's not within 600 square feet. It just needed to be approved by the planning department, which it was, but I wanted to make sure you guys knew. So if you roll past there and you seen a sign, you're like, you don't come get me. Just so you know. And also, For B-107-23, Eric and Kimberly and Tisdale, 515 Gardenia Street. They have their breezeway, and their garage is, complete.
Yeah. I
Very
drove
good.
by and looked.
Mhm.
I saw it.
Very good.
Other than that, that's technically old business. It's just the old and new, but, you know.
That's fine.
So you can move forward.
Next on our agenda is public comment. Public comment?
Hi, Tommy Klavick, 1316 Ohio Street. I don't do question and answer, but if I was a board member, the question I asked about the drive-in shine is, it's actually been a purchase agreement made? How much earnest money have they put down? When is the closing date gonna be? I'm gonna talk about a pet peeve that I have, is to be obsolete signs. This cite section 19.05 of the Michigan City Code, under subsection K, obsolete signs. Signs that advertise a product that is no longer made, an event that has already occurred, or a business that has closed are prohibited. The enforcement shall provide a letter to the property owner giving set time for the removal of the obsolete sign. Now, this board deals a lot with signage and whatnot. When they put their signage up, when the business opens, why aren't they taking the signage down when it closed? I'll give you an example. Magros, they've been in business for quite a long time. Last year they closed. They still got the signage on the facade of their building. I know Mr. Top, who owns the tacos, my friend, he wants to go in there, but he's having issues with the health department. And I'll give you another. I'm gonna read underneath it, subsection I, off premises signs. Signs except billboards which identify a use, advertises products or services not available on the premises which the sign is located. Garage sale signs, residential open house signs providing directions to a business are prohibited. There's one on the south end of town. This business is closed, and that sign really should have never been put there. It was a sign advertising a John Chilikian's jewelry store. It's on South Franklin Street. You know, he doesn't even own that property anymore. The one side of the sign is just empty, and it's just the other sign is it's garbage, and you really need to have a special pickup and have that removed. It's like it just shows poor, really bad business stewardship. And it's like nobody's minding the store around here. To me, that's kind of reminiscent of the type of blight and urban decay and the other kind of scary things you see when you go and you drive all the major thoroughfares and the neighborhood streets over in the city of Gary. Well, on the opposite end of the spectrum, take a trip down to Hamilton County. Your gold standard first class cities like a Carmel or a Fishers or a Noblesville or a Westfield over in Zionsville or Columbus. They seem to have much higher class standards there. And, it seems like they're residents of a much more enriched quality of life compared to what we do here in Michigan City. So I want to throw that out there. Thank you.
Can I? Okay. Can I reply to him? I want to tell you, Tommy, and that's an old neighborhood, and people will refer to that as Magro's shoe store for the next 100 years.
Yep.
And it won't make a difference what that taco sign says. If you say Magro's, they know that's where they're gonna go.
You got to get out of the past.
Sears Tower, Kaminsky Park. Scott Mellon, 200 Kenwood Place. Shouldn't have done that. I forgot what I was going to say.
And we're wonderful.
I have a question to ask the attorney. Between the zoning variances granted on December 12th and today's finding of facts, can those decisions be revisited?
Mr. Chairman,
Please.
I've said this on a few occasions, and I'll say it again. I do not engage in providing legal advice or answering legal questions to the people that come up here and deliver public comment. That's not appropriate. I will
Okay.
always do it if you ask me to. But if you don't ask me to do that, I will not. I don't think it's appropriate. So I'll be happy to answer the question if you direct me to.
My apologies, let me rephrase. Mr. Chairman, between a finding of variance and a finding of fact, is a petition, can it be relitigated, if you will?
Let me answer that.
Please, Mr. Hale.
Thank you. Because the answer is simple, no.
Okay.
Once it's passed on December 12th or whatever date it was approved, it's final. We just then put together findings of fact that are in writing. It saves an awful lot of time of spending maybe an hour or 2 hours or more writing out the findings for each petition as it comes before us. And as we all know, more and more, we're seeing conditions that are added to that, and it's a cumbersome process. And so we need that time. That's all.
May I ask you a question? As I recall, once the BZA votes on and makes a decision, the only recourse you have after that is to take it to a county court. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
To expand on Tommy's question about obsolete signs, I think the real question is who's enforcing the code? Who's responsible for enforcing these things?
Ms. Martin, would you like to take that one?
Our department is, however, because it is private property, we still have to notify individuals and we still have to follow our proper procedures. However, our proper procedures, we have to give them time to respond back to us. I'm not sure where we are in that phase. However, I do know that things are being worked on behind the scenes. And I'm not sure if those areas have been notified or not. But I will find out for you if you would like. Would that be fine?
Yeah, I was just asking. We have lots of laws, but a law in a book doesn't do any good if there's no enforcement. We have laws against littering, we have laws against speeding, and people come to common council and complain about littering and speeding. And they want more laws. And it's like, laws don't fix problems, in my opinion.
Well, each department handles things separately. And so if you inform them, then they have to go through the proper channels. So our department doesn't handle all of that, like trash removal, we don't do everything that may be presumed of us. But what we are capable of, that we can do, I will make sure that they know.
Thank you.
No problem.
And then just another, I don't know if this would be a point of order or not. My understanding of how these commissions are run now is that if it's not a Zoom, if all members are here, I don't think you need to do a roll call vote. You might check with your attorney. I think you can just do a voice vote, if that's the right term.
I think for us, it's
PCA,
just that we're so used to doing it a certain way.
I think
And that way we're covered. Or at least that's the way I feel up here.
you get to run the show. So that, I mean,
So, yeah.
some people might want to go faster. It might simplify. Anyway, thank you very much.
Board members, if there is no discussion, I have a topic.
any other public,
And Mr. Hale, tell me to shut up if I go the wrong way.
is there any other public comment?
So, yeah, is there any other public comment? Any other public comment? So the question is Mr. Klavick, before you came up here, did you call anybody to find out who you talked to about these signs, or? I mean, that might have been a good thing to do instead of, making the trip up here, but I just thought I'd throw that out there. So you're more than welcome to call the planning department, or you can call the
Inspection department.
inspection department. There's code enforcement's in there too, isn't it?
It's all
Code
the same.
enforcement,
Inspection
stuff like
department holds.
So,
both.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't hurt to check into some of that stuff. So, because literally you came here tonight and we don't have answers for you. So, is there any other public comment?
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Sure.
Now, the city code does say that the code enforcers have the power to enforce all of the laws and code of the city. It doesn't say it's restricted to certain departments. I don't know if that's
What
a
I was referring to is he mentioned garbage removal. We don't do that. So the regulations behind that will have to be enforced by a different department. That's what I meant.
Okay, I guess I'm just saying that the code actually gives code enforcement the power to also enforce that. You know, as opposed to shuffling people from department to department, you may want to look into that. You know, if there is landlord putting a ton of trash out there or something, if code enforcement can take care of the citation and then notify street department or sanitation.
We we do that. Those are the things that we do. That is the proper procedure that we take.
So at this point, I'm going to ask our code enforcement person if she'd like to take a minute and explain.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah.
Kristen Vanderborg, City of Michigan City Code Enforcement. I was actually on my way home and I listened to the meetings on the way home because I do a long drive away. And so to answer Mr. Klavic's question, I have not received any complaints about signs. Yes, it's on the books, but I have other more pressing and important things to handle other than signage. If we can get more code enforcement officers, other than the two that are working currently right now, we'd probably be able to handle the volume of calls we get in. As far as codes being what we handle, there are certain sections in a code book. Section 94 is for sanitation. Certain sections are for the police department. Just like for cars, there are certain things, aspects we can handle in regards to cars. But we cannot, by law, our department run license plates, run VIN numbers, and find out who the person is that owns a car and put a tag on it. That's done by the Michigan City Police Department. I can enforce the fact that a vehicle is not operational in the yard, or if it doesn't meet the setbacks, because you can park some certain vehicles in a back area of a property as long as it's a certain footage away, which is, I believe, 5 foot from my memory. So when people call and say there's a burnt out car, example, there's one on Ripley Street, the police department will tag that vehicle. They should be tagging that vehicle. All I could do is make that phone call, pass the information over, answer the email, send an email. And that's what our department does. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
I'd just like to say thank you for all your hard work.
No problem. Then, we have section 1608 of the recreational code, as far as recreational vehicles, subsection C, which states an RV or recreational vehicle cannot be parked on an adjoining lot that does not have an accessory structure on it. 13, we have a person who parks his RV on a lot that doesn't have an accessory. What's that?
I can have this parcel combined.
You could, and then you'd be illegal. But that's why I'm saying you can't point the finger at everything else and not realize what you're doing wrong. I have no problem with it, Tommy, but I have to prioritize certain things. I have council people constantly calling.
Excuse me. So why don't you two continue this on afterwards? And that's just something you guys need to work out. But now you know who to contact.
If I
I'd be more than happy to take care of his complaints if you just send me an email and we'll address them.
It's like the mayor, I believe, is also hiring a code enforcement supervisor
Mhm.
who is going to be able to handle all this stuff.
Right.
Is she not?
There's a position
that's the
on, it
plan.
hasn't been passed yet, but that's
Right.
the.
But that is the plan at this point. So hopefully there'll be a focal point for this that's not on the road all the time.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for
Thank you.
doubling back. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Board members, is there any other discussion, comments? Otherwise, we're looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Mrs. Stransky.
I second
seconded
it.
By Mrs. Vance. We're done.